Hello, hello! Welcome to another Storytime Quickies of the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. Today's tale, number 30, The Louse and the Flea. Whoop. This is a fairly short one. I promised yesterday that because this was such a short story, I was actually going to do two tonight. So Tale 31, The Girl Without Hands, is going to be our follow-up as well. So a double feature night for you guys tonight. Lucky dogs. Let's get into it. I know you guys are ready to get to bed soon. So grab your blankies, your snackies, get comfy because it's time for a tale. A Grimm Brothers tale. Tale. Excuse me. Do you guys do like vocal warm-ups before doing stuff? Like if I don't know, I haven't had the opportunity to ask any streamers this, but like do you guys do like vocal warm-ups? I've seen a lot of like voiceover people talk about this where they do like gargling before sets and stuff. So it helps with like tone and warming up your vocal cords and stuff like that. But usually they do it for like 20 minutes at a time. Okay. But I'm stalling at this point. So let's get started. Tale number 30, The Louse and the Flea. A louse and a flea kept house together and were brewing beer in an eggshell. Then the little house fell in and burnt him, or the little louse fell in and burnt herself. At this, the little flea began to scream loudly. Then said the little door, "Little flea, why are you screaming?" "Because the louse, it has burnt herself." Then the little door began to creak. At this, a little broom in the corner said, "Why are you creaking, little door?" "Have I not reason to creak?" "The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping." So the little broom began to sweep frantically. Then a little cart passed by and said, "Why are you sweeping, little broom?" "Have I not reason to sweep? The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping. The little door is creaking." So the little cart said, "Then I will run," and began to run wildly. Then said the garbage heap by which it ran, "Why are you running so, little cart?" "Have I not reason to run? The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping. The little door is creaking. The little broom is sweeping." The garbage heap said, "Then I will burn furiously," and began to burn in clear flames. A little tree stood near the heap and said, "Garbage heap, why are you burning?" "Have I not reason to burn? The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping. The little door is creaking. The little broom is sweeping. The little cart is running." The little tree said, "Then I shall shake myself," and began to shake herself so that all her leaves fell off. A girl who came up with her water pitcher saw that, and said, "Little tree, why are you shaking yourself?" "Have I not reason to shake myself? The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping. The little door is creaking. The little broom is sweeping. The little cart is running. The little heap is burning." At this, the girl said, "Then I will break my little water pitcher." And she broke her little water pitcher. Then said the little spring from which ran the water, "Girl, why are you breaking your water jug?" "Have I not reason to break my water jug? The little louse has burnt herself. The little flea is weeping. The little door is creaking. The little broom is sweeping. The little cart is running. The little heap is burning. The little tree is shaking itself." Oh ho, said the spring. Then I will begin to flow, and began to flow violently. And in the water everything was drowned, the girl, the little tree, the little garbage heap, the little cart, the little broom, the little door, and the little flea, the little louse, all together. No morality to that story whatsoever. It was just pure chaos and panic the entire tale. I liked the little rhyming, but like it had no point to it, right? It didn't feel like it. Other than maybe like when one doesn't keep their composure, chaos ensues. I guess I don't know. Quite odd, right? So, Dune dog. Next for number dos for tonight's tales. Tale number 31. The Girl Without Hands. And I think this one is about 3 to 4 pages long. I actually want about 5 pages. This is gonna be a little bit of a one, so get ready. The Little Girl Without Hands. Still weeping? I think you should. Alright. The Little Girl Without Hands. A certain miller had little by little fallen into poverty, and had nothing left but his mill and a large apple tree behind it. Once, when he had gone into the forest to fetch wood, an old man stepped up to him whom he had never seen before and said, "Why do you plague yourself with cutting wood? I will make you rich if you will promise me what is standing behind your mill." "What can that be but my apple tree?" thought the miller, and said, "Yes," and gave a written promise to the stranger. He, however, laughed mockingly and said, "When 3 years have passed, I will come and carry away what belongs to me." And then he went. Yo, dog, chill. When the miller got home, his wife came to meet him and said, "Tell me, miller, from where comes this sudden wealth into our house? All at once, every box and chest was filled. No one brought it in, and I know not how it happened." Relax. Shh. Sorry, he's a little blind right now. He can't see anything. Good. Okay, he's chilling. All right, he's gonna relax now. All right. "I know not how it happened," he answered. "It comes from a stranger who met me in the forest and promised me great treasure. I, in return, have promised him what stands behind the mill. We can very well give him the big apple tree for it." "Ah, husband," said the terrified wife, "that must have been the devil. He did not mean the apple tree, but our daughter, who was standing behind the mill sweeping the yard." The miller's daughter was a beautiful, God fearing girl, and lived through the 3 years in piety and without sin. When therefore the time was over, and the day came when the evil one was to fetch her, she washed herself clean, and made a circle round herself with chalk. The devil appeared quite early, but he could not come near her. Angrily he said to the miller, "Take all water away from her, that she may no longer be able to wash herself, for otherwise I have no power over her." The miller was afraid, and did so. The next morning the devil came again, and she had wept onto her hands, and they were quite clean. Again he could not get near her, and furiously said to the miller, "Cut her hands off, or else I cannot get the better of her." The miller was shocked and answered, "How could I cut off my own child's hands?" Then the evil one threatened him and said, "If you do not do it, you are mine, and I will take you yourself." The father became alarmed and promised to obey him. So he went to the girl and said, "My child, if I do not cut off both your hands, the devil will carry me away, and in my terror I have promised to do it. Help me in my need and forgive me the harm I do to you." She replied, "Dear father, do with me what you will. I am your child." Thereupon she laid down both her hands and let them be cut off. The devil came for the third time, but she had wept so long and so much on the stumps that after all they were quite clean. Then he had to give in and had lost all right over her. The miller said to her, "Because of you, I have received such great wealth that I will keep you most delicately as long as you live." But she replied, "Here I cannot stay. I will go forth. Compassionate people will give me as much as I require." Thereupon she had maimed arms bound on her back, and by sunrise she set out on her way and walked the whole day until night fell. Then she came to a royal garden, and by the shimmering of the moon she saw the tree covered with beautiful fruits grew in it. But she could not enter, for there was much water round about it, and as she had walked the whole day and not eaten one mouthful, and hunger tormented her, she thought, "Ah, if I were but inside, then I might eat the fruit, else I must die of hunger." Then she kneeled down, called on God the Lord, and prayed, and suddenly an angel came towards her, who made a dam in the water, so that the moat became dry, and she could walk through it. And now she went into the garden, and the angel went with her. She saw a tree covered with beautiful pears, but they were all counted. Then she went to them, and to still her hunger, ate one with her mouth from the tree, but no more. The gardener was watching, but as the angel was standing by, he was afraid, and thought the maiden was a spirit, and was silent. Neither did he dare to cry out or to speak to the spirit. When she had eaten the pear, she was satisfied, and went and concealed herself among the bushes. The king, to whom the garden belonged, came down to eat next morning, and counted, and saw that one of the pears was missing, and asked the gardener what had become of it, as it was not lying beneath the tree, but was gone. Then answered the gardener, "Last night a spirit came in, who had no hands, and ate off one of the pears with its mouth." The king said, "How did the spirit get over the water, and where did it go after it had eaten the pear?" The gardener answered, "Someone from heaven came in a snow white garment and made a dam, and kept back the water, that the spirit might walk through the moat. And as it must have been an angel, I was afraid, and asked no questions, and did not cry out. When the spirit had eaten the pear, it went back again." The king said, "If it is as you say, I will watch with you tonight." When it grew dark, the king came into the garden, and brought a priest with him, who was to speak to the spirit. All three seated themselves beneath the tree, watched. At midnight the maiden came creeping out of the thicket, and went to the tree, and again ate one of the pears off it with her mouth, and beside her stood the angel in white garments. Then the priest went out to them and said, "Come, you from heaven or from earth, are you a spirit or a human being?" She cried, "I am no spirit, but an unhappy mortal deserted by all but God." The king said, "Though you are forsaken by all the world, I will not forsake you." He took her with him into his royal palace, and as she was so beautiful and good, he loved her with all his heart, had silver hands made for her, and took her for his wife. After a year, the king had to go to war, so he placed his young queen in the care of his mother and said, "If she is brought to bed, take care of her, nurse her well, and tell me of it at once in a letter." Then she gave birth to a fine boy. So the old mother made haste to write and announce the joyful news to him. But the messenger rested by a brook on the way, and as he was fatigued by the great distance, he fell asleep. Then came the devil, who was always seeking to injure the good queen, and exchanged the letter for another, in which was written that the queen had brought a monster into the world. When the king read the letter, he was shocked and much troubled, but he wrote in answer that they were to take great care of the queen and nurse her well until his arrival. The messenger went back with the letter, but rested at the same place and again fell asleep. Then came the devil once more, and put a different letter in his pocket, in which it was written that they were to put the queen and her child to death. The old mother was terribly shocked when she received the letter, and could not believe it. She wrote back again to the king, but received no other answer, because each time the devil substituted a false letter, and in the last letter it was also written that she was to preserve the queen's tongue and eyes as a token that she had obeyed. But the old mother wept, thinking such innocent blood was to be shed, and had a doe brought by night, and cut out her tongue and eyes, and kept them. Then said she to the queen, wait. But the older mother wept to think such innocent blood was to be shed, and had a doe brought by night, and cut out her tongue. Oh, she had the deer brought, and she cut out the tongue and eyes of the deer. Then said she to the queen, I cannot have you killed, as the king commands, but here you may stay no longer. Go forth into the wide world with your child, and never come here again. The poor woman tied her child on her back, and went away with eyes full of tears. She came into a great wild forest, and then she fell on her knees and prayed to God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to her and led her to a little house on which was a sign with the words, Here all dwell free. A snow white maiden came out of the little house and said, Welcome, Lady Queen, and led her inside. Then they unbound the little boy from her back, and held him to her breast, that he might feed, and laid him in a beautifully made little bed. Then said the poor woman, How do you know that I was a queen? The white maiden answered, I am an angel sent by God, who will watch over you and your child. The queen stayed 7 years in the little house, and was well cared for, and by God's grace, because of her piety, her hands, which had been cut off, grew once more. At last the king came home again from the war, and his first wish was to see his wife and child. Then his aged mother began to weep and said, You wicked man, why did you write to me that I was to take those two innocent lives? And she showed him the two letters which the evil one had forged, and then continued, I did you as you bade me, and showed the tokens, tongue and eyes. Then the king began to weep for his poor wife and his little son, so much more bitterly than she was doing, that the aged mother had compassion on him and said, Be at peace. She still lives. I secretly had a doe killed, and took these tokens from it, but I bound the child to your wife's back, and bade her go forth into the wild world, and made her promise never to come back here again, because you were so angry with her. Then spoke the king, I will go as far as the sky is blue, and I will neither eat nor drink until I have found again my dear wife and my child. if in the meantime they have not been killed or died of hunger. Thereupon the king traveled about for 7 long years, and sought her in every cleft of the rocks and in every cave. But he did not find her, and thought she had died of want. During the whole of this time he neither ate nor drank, but God supported him. At length he came into a great forest, and found therein the little house whose sign was, "Here all dwell free." Then forth came the white maiden, took him by the hand, led him in, and said, "Welcome, Lord King," and asked him from where he came. He answered, "I have travelled about for the space of 7 years, and I seek my wife and her child, but cannot find them." The angel offered him meat and drink, but he did not take anything, and only wished to rest a little. Then he laid down to sleep, and put a handkerchief over his face. Thereupon the angel went into the chamber where the queen sat with her son, whom she usually called Sorrowful, and said to her, "Go out with your child, your husband has come." So she went to the place where he lay, and the handkerchief fell from his face. Then said she, "Sorrowful, pick up your father's handkerchief, and cover his face again." The child picked it up, and put it over his face again. The king in his sleep heard what passed, and had pleasure in letting the handkerchief fall once more. But the child grew impatient, and said, "Dear mother, how can I cover my father's face when I have no father in this world? I have learnt to say the prayer, 'Our Father which art in heaven.' You have told me that my father was in heaven, and was the good God. And how can I recognize a wild man like this? He is not my father." When the king heard that, he got up, and asked who they were. Then said she, "I am your wife, and that is your son, Sorrowful." And he saw her living hands, and said, "My wife has silver hands." She answered, "The good God had caused my natural hands to grow again." And the angel went into the inner room, and brought the silver hands and showed them to him. Then he knew for a certainty that it was his dear wife and his dear child, off my heart. Wait. Oh, and he kissed them, and had glad, and said, "A heavy stone has fallen off my heart." Then the angel of God gave them one meal with her, and after that they went home to the king's aged mother. There were great rejoicings everywhere, and the king and queen were married again, and lived contently to their happy. Question: have you ever stepped on a bug on purpose before? If yes, would you ever do it again? I don't know how to answer that. Have you ever stepped on a bug on purpose? I mean, are we talking about when I was young, or like as like a grown adult? Because like I feel like everybody when they're a kid is kind of like immature in that way, you know. Uh, we all make those mistakes at certain points of our life. I think as I grew older, I had like a lot more found respect for the environment and stuff like that. Definitely. Um, I mean, for one, I don't think I've ever really been scared of bugs or like animals of that sort. I mean, I kind of grew up in like a farm setting quite a bit. It's kind of odd for somebody that like grew up in the city. I had a lot of farm experience because not only did my parents own a ranch up in like Bakersfield, but every summer I used to go to Mexico as well. So I would spend a lot of time in like rural Mexico, not like big city Mexico. It was like I was living like next to like pigsties and shit. Well, at any time of your life, but does that mean you wouldn't do it again? No, not really. I think I'm more the type that it's funny you actually asked this because I was like a week or two ago, I was on my jog running, and I came across a bug on the floor, and literally like went around it entirely because I didn't want to step on it. And that was all I could really think about. I was like, man, I wonder how many people like deliberately choose to just like squash on bugs, you know? It's such a like odd thing to think about. Kind of strange that that's the question that gets asked in chat though. Okay, so that concludes story number 31, The Girl Without Hands. For tomorrow's tale, we're going to be doing tale 32, Clever Hans. Okay, Aloha. I guess that finishes the question then. I was actually going to ask if you'd be able to participate in a YouTube challenge, but that answers it. uh, yeah, no. As far as like stepping on bugs, I'm not too entirely too sure. Okay, so that concludes Tale 30 and 31 for Storytime Quickies. If you're watching from YouTube, please hit that like, subscribe down below. It should be somewhere down over here. I'll be posting up this on the YouTube in the next hour or so, probably. So you make sure you like, comment. It helps out with the algorithms. Thank you so much. I'm probably going to end this video, so make sure you do all that good stuff. On this side, I believe, I have the playlist to the rest of the Storytime Quickies. I have all the Storytime Quickies placed into this little box right here. My channel's on this side as well. Make sure you follow that. And until next time, as always, don't stay a stranger. Bye. Boopy, pop, pop, pop.